And those are إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ هَلُوعًا. The human being, no doubt about it, has been created reactionary. The human being was created, and I'm roughly translating halou' as reactionary. Human beings, when something happens to them, immediately they just want the problem to go away. Or if something good happens to us, we immediately respond in ways that may not even be appropriate. We overreact, and we're quick to react. We're quick to judge a situation and just do what we do. Just like physically, if a needle touches you and you go like that, just like that, even in our minds and our hearts, when something happens, our thoughts and our emotions are sometimes out of control. And that statement by Allah is captured, that idea is captured by the word halou'. So before I go into the attitude of halou', he also adds that Allah used the word khuliqa, the human being has been created this way. As if Allah programmed us this way, like we're made to be this way. And that's an interesting thing to say. خُلِقَ كِنَايَةً عَنْ تَمَكُّنِ ذَلِكَ الْخُلُقِ مِنْهُ وَغَلَبَتُهُ عَلَى النَّفْسِ. Meaning Allah said, no doubt you were made this way to demonstrate that is actually your natural state. Like if you don't work on it, you're going to be reactionary. Like you're not able to withstand and be patient and be, to not let things get to you. You're not like that naturally. You're actually reactionary naturally. I mean, think about children. When something bothers them, they're not like, I should sit and have sabr. They start crying right away. Or they throw a tantrum right away. Naturally, as children grow, then they have to develop that skill of reacting in a way that's more controlled, right? To withhold. But that's not something that occurs to us naturally. Allah is describing that our predisposed state is actually of being very impatient and being very reactionary. Now, let me compare that a little bit with, the physical body. Our physical body is also very reactionary. It's also, in a sense, very weak. But there are people, like people that are in the martial arts, for example, or boxing or whatever else. As they train, their resistance for pain and their resistance for otherwise uncomfortable situations goes up. They're able to withstand more than a normal person can. The human body is capable of some incredible things, to withstand some incredible endurance, if it is put under regular training. You can't go to the gym one time and then take a punch in the gut. You can't do it. You've got to be at it for a long time and build that resistance and strength, and then you're able to withstand otherwise something that will knock you out. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to take it. And it's actually the same formula that Allah made for the physical body. In the physical world, if you want to get stronger, you have to build your resistance. If you don't want the reaction of getting knocked out quickly, you've got to train yourself and get stronger. The same exact exercise program Allah created for our minds and our hearts. That we don't become reactionary with our thoughts, with our speech, because speech is an expression of what your thoughts are, right? If you're going to blurt something out, it's because that was going on in your mind or in your heart. And it's a lack of restraint, a lack of resistance that you possess, that you have the ability to have, that is letting it come out. That's letting it just explode onto the scene. And so, now I want to share with you how Mufassirun, when our classical scholars looked at this word, hala, human beings have been created, halou', extremely reactionary, extremely quick to respond. How did they interpret this? There are several interpretations that they offered, and all of them, Ibn Ashur correctly points out, are actually not the meaning of the word, but certain manifestations of it. It's not the disease, it's the symptoms. Like, how do you see this come out in life? It's ashara, it's greed. Like human beings see an opportunity to make some money. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ هَلُوعًا. Allah Azza wa Jal takes two of those symptoms and then describes them. There are many symptoms, but He describes two salient ones in the next two ayat. He says, إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. He says when bad stuff happens to him, when harm touches him in any way, when some discomfort comes your way, comes my way, then we become جزوع. جزوع ضد الصبر, ضد الصابر, أو صبور. You become completely impatient. You lose it. Whether you lose it by way of anger, by way of crying, by way of buckling, by way of losing hope entirely, by way of using foul language, you can have your own reactions. All of them will come under this one word, jazur. Some people will, face a bad situation, and as a result of it, they'll say, you know what, forget it, I don't want to pray anymore. That's it, I'm done. Or you know what, I have never had a drink in my life, but my life is so messed up right now, I'm just going to go to a bar, I'm going to have a drink. Forget it, who cares anyway? Life stinks anyway. I've even heard people say things like, the more I pray, the harder my life gets, so forget it. It's not like it's getting any better. People will turn to drugs, alcohol, sin. People will turn to all kinds of things to deal with a problem. And then they'll say, you know what, I was going through a hard time, that's why I did it. I was just in a rough time in my life, and that's why, I did this, that, and the other. That's not I had my reasons. I broke down. And Allah actually acknowledges that human beings have that tendency. He's actually not criticizing it yet. He's not criticizing that yet. He's saying human beings are weak. They are reactionary. And when bad things happen, they do buckle. They're not able to withhold. If they were good all this time, eventually they just break. And then they do things that they would otherwise never have done. They become jazur. And the other extreme tendency is وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. And when good things come their way, when some good touches them, they make sure nobody else gets it. They make sure that they can hold on to it, and they prevent others from getting anywhere near that good. وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. And that I've seen this in the most extreme ways. Like you have people that have they went through med school, they became doctors, and they're established in their careers. They've got senior positions at the hospital or whatever, and they see some new kid come, and he's just in his residency. He's just a new kid, and they're giving him a hard time and insecure about that kid. What is his success going to change about your career? He's not there to take your job. Relax. But nope, can't see anybody else come up. Because when khair comes, I want it all to myself. I don't want to see anybody else come up. I can't stand that. إِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. These are the extremes that we can go down. But then Allah Azza wa Jal describes the remedy. By the way, all of this so far is how human beings can easily become. Allah is not saying bad people are like this. Allah is saying anybody can become like this and not realize it. He's actually saying this is ghalabat khasatin. This is the dominant quality of people. This is how people were programmed. This is how they were made. But then what exercise are you supposed to do to build that resistance? Remember I told you the example of the boxer? If this is how we're going to be, how do we get out of it? If this is how weak we are, and this is the kind of people we can become so easily, what is it that we can do to snap out of it, to become stronger, to be able to deal with these problems or these good things in a way that's mature, that we have the resistance, and we can take the hits and move on, keep throwing punches, and not get knocked out. That solution to Allah is إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ, except those who pray. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ. Those who in their prayers are consistent and constant. Remember I told you exercise needs to be consistent before you build resistance. This thing that we do, this prayer that we do, it's actually a way of making us stronger people. But still, you're like, okay, I make wudu and I stand there and I recite some words and I do this cardiovascular exercise. How is this making me handle my problems? Well, I don't see the connection. How is this supposed to help that? If you recognize, and I recognize what prayer actually is. First and foremost, salah is a connection directly to Allah. But more importantly, when you're standing in prayer, you're standing directly in front of Allah. And when you're in a meeting, like if you're in a meeting with your boss, and in the room, there's only you and your boss, nobody else. At that, and this is like one of those, like a job interview, for example, right? And you're about to get that job. Or you got a chance to meet the president of the university. Some big deal. And you're alone in a meeting with this important person, this VIP. Is that the time that you are going to be thinking about anything else? Is that the time you'll be distracted by any other concern? The only thing on your mind will be, I better not mess this up. This overrides, and for now, whether my mother is texting me, whether there's news breaking out on the phone, whether your phone goes, dee, dee, nope, nothing. It's on airplane mode, it's gone, because right now I'm in an interview. Right now nothing else exists. Everything became less of a priority. Everything's priority became minimized because clearly to you this is far more important. You and I are standing in front of Allah. And we're actually simulating, please pay attention to this part, we're simulating when we are going to be standing in front of Allah on Judgment Day. That's what we're doing. We're standing in front of Allah humbly, and we're standing and reciting only what He wants us to recite. No words of our own, none of our own choice. We're doing exactly what He wants to do, absolute submission. Every movement is submitted to His order. That's exactly what we're going to do in every movement of the prayer. What are we simulating? The absolute submission to Allah on Judgment Day. Now you think about that. When I am going through whatever problem I'm going through, you're going through whatever problem you're going through, and we're tending to be reactionary, and then Dhuhr time comes, and we say Allahu Akbar, and all of a sudden we're on Judgment Day. Are these problems that big anymore? Are these problems really the ones that need such a reaction anymore? Or they become all of a sudden insignificant? their size diminishes because you're in a much more powerful meeting. It's the consciousness of prayer. It's being aware of what exactly salat is. What is it that we're doing when we're standing in front of Allah? We're putting things in proper perspective. No matter what calamity we're going through in life, it can't be bigger. It can't be something that our master can't solve. And you've got a one-on-one meeting with him. And you take it before him and you become optimistic. And maybe the first time you did it, your problem didn't get solved. The second time you did it, you didn't get solved. And you get to say, I keep praying, but my problem's not going away. How do you not want me to react? And by the way, some reaction is natural. I told you before, Yaqub alayhi salam reacted, he cried. For many, many years, he cried. But he doesn't stop his prayers. To some extent, for the most part, we will have a reaction. We can't stop but having some emotions, but Allah Azza wa Jal will give us the strength to navigate through them. And we will not become people that lose hope, not become people that lose sabr, not become haluu, entirely reactionary. Some reaction will always be there, that makes us human. But is that reaction going to overwhelm us? Is that sadness or that fear or that cowardice or that anger, is that going to overtake us? No, not if salah is there. If salah is there, we're going to be able to manage those emotions, contain those emotions. And that's the remedy that Allah Azza wa Jal gave us in these beautiful ayat. إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ. One last thing and I let you go. There are multiple remedies in these ayat. This is just the first of them, right? And the most important of them, of course. Which is why it isn't just the first remedy, it is also the last. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَوَاتِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ. It's at the end as well. That is the key remedy to guard your prayers. But I'll mention one more remedy, the second one. He says, وَالَّذِينَ فِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ حَقٌّ مَعْلُومٌ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. He says in their money, there's a piece that is dedicated, for a known piece that is dedicated, a right for those who ask, and those who are in need, and those who are deprived. In other words, you and I are going through whatever calamity, or you and I are having really good time. Never do we forget there are people in much worse situations. People are having a much more difficult time. And by giving to them, and by thinking of them, it actually helps you diminish, well, you know what, I don't have it that bad. I don't have it so bad. At least I'm still able to help someone else. And look at their circumstance and compare it to mine, I'm actually living a pretty luxurious life. I have it pretty good. It puts things in perspective and it builds your resistance to your problems. Understand, whenever something bad happens to you and me, there are people that much worse is happening to. And that in itself makes you and me grateful that, Ya Allah, you did not give me a much bigger test that you've given some other people. You've given me a much lesser test. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us of those that are not reactionary in a way that doesn't please Him. And may Allah Azza wa Jal give us strength through prayer and strength through giving genuine